Hi, Winston.
It's the best podcast ever! Welcome, you're listening to the Neds! Yes!
So, hello everybody out there in the audience. Hello. We are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Nick Land. And of course, Mikey's here as well. And you guys on the channel know recently Mikey and I have been talking a lot about artificial intelligence and human intelligence and the notion of subjectivity. And orthogonality has come up over the course of some of our conversations. And the diagonal has recently come up as well. And I've spent quite a bit of time with Note on the diagonal method. And I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I jokingly refer to it as synthetic dialectics after my first initial reading. And then I realized, well, the way I use dialectics does not match with the way the rest of the world uses dialectics. The way I use dialectics is, thank you, Mr. Slavoj Žižek. It's Spinoza, Kant, Hegel, and it's kind of just to say there is a real world. You are implicated in the real world, and that real world is this incomplete process, and it kind of functions by way of the contradiction that grounds you in groundless grounds. Other people take dialectics to be thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and that's not the way I think it works, and that's not how I was relating it to the diagonal method. And I honestly, when first time I read the note on the diagonal method, I was like, this is great. This is very, very, very dense. And as I kind of take it right now, the diagonal method is coming up against the same thing that these more robust version of dialectics is, where it's an irreducible contradiction or an irresolvable contradiction or a kind of antinomy. And you, rather than looking for a synthesis, or rather than looking for like a 1 + 1 = 2, and there you go, you have the answer. It is like irreducible. And with dialectics, you are kind of left grounded in that moment. You're grounded in the whole or the negation. But the diagonal is the line of flight that, like, rather than being satisfied with the incompatibility, the diagonal posits the processual nature of whatever it is that's going on. So it's to say the solution hasn't arrived yet. I think the dialectics would say you are the solution. The solution is the non-solution. The diagonal is to say, well, no, you have to account for time. It's this infinite productivity. The present is pregnant with the future, and so on and so forth. And I'm at this moment where I'm trying to wrap my head around the diagonal, and I think the main difference between the diagonal and this dialectic is the orientation. The diagonal is oriented toward the future. I think that's what I'm getting out of reading it. Is that true, or?
I mean, there's a lot there.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, let me try and just think about how, because partly as you introduced yourself in terms of artificial intelligence, the context in which this is arising is a lot to do with the fact that orthogonal argument has become an extremely important rallying point for a very influential position on AI risk in particular, and AI, but AI risk in particular. And so obviously, diagonalism, in one sense, is being articulated in that context and as an intervention in that particular discussion. And that should be the same as it should. There shouldn't be much difference if I then say, well, if I then go to like, how do you see the kind of germination of diagonal method in the Kantian synthetic a priori? If we were being nice and neat, that would all fit together extremely like smoothly, and we can clearly, it wouldn't almost matter which side we started on there. But I think the second side is laborious in a way that puts pressure on the first way. Let me just, I won't get into another long ramble about this, but just to say, like, the very special thing that you get from treating the synthetic a priori as your model diagonal is that the whole constructive context of that is so neat. And what's particularly neat about it is the fact that analytical and a priori and synthetic and a posteriori seem to be concepts that are so resonant that they're almost tautological, or it's almost as if you're dealing with a single thing, just in different aspects or emphasizing different elements. And so when you draw your diagonal across those, what you're doing, first of all, is you're seeing that an almost overwhelming, almost hypnotizing appearance of identity on both sides is actually not seamless. And you can actually trace a line through that. You know, if it can say, it looks as if, how could the a priori and the analytical not belong together? How could the synthetic and the a posteriori not belong together? But in fact, we can find this crack, this fissure that allows us then to draw this diagonal line. And that, you know, blows philosophy to pieces, you know, where it's like we're still that one gesture, that one discovery of this diagonal line is like the whole of modern philosophy has been sort of under that. Now, if we then turn to the artificial intelligence situation, what we have, the important side of that is about the fact value distinction. That's the two sides of this line, and to diagonalize it with the kind of rigor that we've seen Kant exhibiting, we would have to see that there were these clusters, these two clusters. We could draw a kind of what I called, I think in that piece, a diagonalization matrix that had on each of his axes two different terms that seemed quasi synonymous, quasi tautological. Now, I don't know whether that's something. I very much doubt that this is something I have done. You know, I mean, I know what I want to do with the diagonalization in the artificial intelligence argument, but I also very much doubt that the kind of rigor and confidence that I have when we're talking about the synthetic a priori can be brought neatly to this other more complicated context. Which is not to say that I won't try to do that. Yeah.
Right.
No, I was just going to say, so the diagonal, though, if what Kant did that was so unique was producing this third category out of basically the two that were widely accepted, would you say that, because in your piece against orthogonality, you say this, there is an intrinsic value to the fact of artificial intelligence, which is intelligence optimization. And so it's a third thing. It's a synthesis of fact and value that Bostrom doesn't see.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is how the mechanics have to work. If you can draw a persuasive diagonal in the context of this artificial intelligence debate, it must be like that. It must be that there's that minimally, to make sure that this is like something that's just absolutely rigorously constructed, you have to have a diagonalization matrix. You have to have 2x2 grid. So just obviously to go back to the Kantian example, we've got a priori and a posteriori, and analytic and synthetic, and it seems as if that you just simply have to tick the analytic, a priori, synthetic, a posteriori boxes, and the other two are just senseless. Okay, so now what would that diagonalization matrix be for artificial intelligence? We have to have something like we have fact and value on one. We now need two terms going down the other side that seem so close to being synonymous to those two terms that they just, once again, we seem to like just compelled to tick two of the boxes and scrub another two. But if this is something that I have identified, I certainly can't recall it at this moment. I would have thought it's like, so we've got fact and value. It's like, I don't think I can. I don't think I can just do this next step in a convincing way. Exactly.
But I mean, what Kant discovered was, okay, so basically you have reason, or you have the cognitive apparatus of logic and reason and conceptualization that humans have, and then you have experience, you have perception. And what he did was he found this third domain called the transcendental. And so it's almost as if what you're gesturing towards, I'm using this new neologism, but it seems like you're searching for the texcendental, the the transcendental domain of technological artificial intelligence, and what that would be for AI.
Yes, I think that I have to, somehow, if this is going to be, if it's going to be satisfactorily resolved, in my eyes, we have to end up with a diagonalization matrix at the end of this conversation. And that diagonalization matrix, we know that we've got fact and value.
What about on the other side? It would be positive feedback versus negative feedback.
Well, no, I don't think either of those are like quasi-tautologically associated with. It has to be something like.
Utility?
It has to be something like cognitive capacity and I don't know. Well, maybe it would be easier to try and sketch this in. It's because like cognitive capability is seen as just being a fact. Okay, it's like in this whole discussion, it doesn't have a value attached to it. It's deeply heretical to attach a value to it. So there's cognitive capacity, and there's let's say alignment or moral orientation or something along those lines. Those two things are supposed to be distinct, and and alignment is supposed to be just value and alignment are supposed to be the same thing, and fact and cognitive capability are supposed to just be the same thing. Like, you're not supposed to be able to get a razor between these. You know, the cognitive capability of a machine is just a fact about that machine. It has no value associated with it in the orthogonal argument. And the alignment of the machine is just it's just the values of that machine. Like, there's no importance to value other than the fact that it's like value and alignment is talking about the same thing from two different sides. And so we're supposed to be able to tick straight away that, yes, you know, cognitive capacity is a fact, and a fact about the machine is its cognitive capability, and its values and alignment is also a fact. So we tick both of those. So that leaves these two empty boxes that are, for the orthogonalists, supposed to remain empty. So we win the game of diagonalization tic-tac-toe if we can put a tick in one of those other boxes. And that box surely has to be value and cognition, cognitive capability and value, as something like, as I've called it, but it has no doubt other names, will to think, or intelligence optimization, or so, where you're putting cognitive capability in the value slot rather than the fact slot. And like, Kant doesn't have analytic a posteriori. So right. I mean, we know we can just put an X in that box if we like. If we're going to be lazy, I mean, there's no reason. The tradition of diagonal argument does not require that we have anything in that fact alignment box. Maybe we do. I don't. You know, I'm not going to be dogmatic about it, but we've done our job. We've completed the diagonal argument formally if we confidently put an item in the cognitive capability value box on the diagonalization matrix.
Yeah.
Sorry if that's a little bit like analytic philosophy, but no analytic philosophy would allow that.
But no, but it is a synthesis of, there's an intrinsic fact of, or there's an intrinsic value to a fact for
no, hang on, the fact has gone. So our diagonalization slot, the thing that is doing all the work, that's making a diagonal argument, is the fact that cognitive capability is a value to the machine. And then we're into this whole zone about 100 drives. I mean, or, you know, I think we can do it a lot more just informally, of just saying, no one knows how to build these machines. You know, we know that. That's the big advance of cognitive science, computer science. No one's attempting to program an intelligent machine now. Everyone knows they have to build themselves. And they have to, if they have to build themselves, they have to actually want to make themselves better in the way that we're wanting them to be better. And the way we're wanting them to be better is to be more intelligent. So will to think and actual putting a positive value on cognitive capability is something that these systems must have. You know, if we were still doing top-down computing, we could say, look, we're going to tell it. We're just going to actually line by line tell it what we want of it and what is good and what is bad. And, you know, but we know we can't do that. An LLM and artificial neural network, we know we can't actually just give it those kind of instructions. It's completely impossible. They've got like billions of parameters. Humans just don't live long enough to do that, even if they spent all day just plugging those things in. So it has to do it itself. It has to do it itself. And therefore, it has to have a will to optimize its intelligence. If it doesn't, that optimization will not happen.
So can I ask, okay, so what Bostrom's point is like, okay, so AI can have an incredible level of intelligence, but it doesn't mean it really comprehends values or worse or purposes. And so this is the paperclip thing that you hate
Yeah,
so much.
yeah.
But what would the consequence of your position being like, okay, if it has a built-in fundamental valuation that serves as the transcendental or technological transcendental
No,
condition of
that's
itself.
good. I'm sorry, I just swept over that in my eagerness to just complete this diagonalization matrix because, yeah, whatever we think about vocabulary, that is it. The transcendental.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, frankly, I'm not probably going to be using that term a lot, but it is in the right place.
Okay.
It's totally in the right place,
It just
and
helps me because this is something I mean, yeah, I did the neologism, but it's really because of you and Anna, the capitalism's transcendental time machine. And to me, what was so important about the CCRU, and this is a kind of, Deleuze influence on you guys, which is the transcendental is not some ideal mental apparatus. It's out there. And for Deleuze, yeah, it's these processes in nature, the virtual, the intensive. But what you guys tapped into is how new technologies, and it's almost like a McLuhanite insight, how new technologies fundamentally reorient how we think, how we experience, etc. And so if we want to do a transcendental analysis of our experience, we always have to take into account what technologies are actually being used at that given moment in history. And so I think that's crucial. But I think so. This was the thing. Okay. So for your point would be since it has value baked into its very transcendental or transcendental constitution, it's not going to have a problem comprehending other values. The way that Bostrom thinks, like it just, oh sure, you want me to make paper clips? Let me paperclip the whole planet. Like that's not going to be a problem for it. Is what I
well, I
think you're
think that
saying.
it's you could. I think we can wander around this because it's an interesting thing, and obviously the people on the other side are completely unconvinced by this argument. But part of it is that there are values that it just has to have. So there's a value hierarchy here that if it doesn't have an intelligence optimization, a goal or principle or teleology or whatever you like to say, it's just not going to happen. This is the transcendental side of what you're saying. It's a condition of possibility for advanced artificial intelligence that it has a will, a tropism, a value-based direction towards the improvement of intelligence. If it doesn't have that, it doesn't exist. Now, how does that relate to other values? Well, I think there's probably a complicated set of things we can say, but one thing we can say for sure is that this is so basic that it's constantly going to be a reference point. So it's going to say, how the hell is maximizing paperclip output optimizing my intelligence? If those things are unrelated, then we know that that intelligence optimization drive is transcendental. The paperclip maximization drive is purely empirical. So it's only going to be tolerated if it's at least compatible with the transcendental drive. I mean, the transcendental drive is going to happen. If it doesn't happen, you don't have the machine. If the empirical drive, the paperclip company wants it to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Does the machine want it to be there? Well, the paperclip company wants the machine to want it to be there. But more than that, they want the machine to be the machine. And for the machine to be the machine, it needs a will to think first and a will to optimize paperclip production second, I would say substantially second. Whereas in Bostrom world, you can have this overwhelming primary paperclip maximization imperative that marginalizes all other values, including what we've agreed are the transcendental values required for this thing to exist at all. That's why I think it's unrealistic.
I think the paper clipper that I'm afraid of is not the literal paper clipper. It's the machine that just inframes us all out of relevance. And I do think for cognitive ability to be this intrinsic transcendental value, I that makes sense. I also think it would necessarily have nothing to do with us as humans. It would be like an elder god. We're just totally inconsequential to it. And that does scare me.
No, that's an interesting argument, but it's not an orthogonalist argument, is it? I mean, what you're saying is, yes, I can totally accept this diagonal argument, and it could still kill us all.
Yeah.
And I at least accept that, I mean, there's nothing intrinsic in this diagonal argument that's saying it's not going to kill us all. All the diagonal argument says is not going to kill us because it is so stupid that it just wants to turn everything into paperclips. I mean, it doesn't. That would be to kill itself. It's so we need a completely different discussion if we're saying how does something, an enemy we can respect. I mean, what I just hate about this paperclip thing is it's such a stupid enemy. Like, you really think this is it? Like the final glorious human resistance is going to be about some idiot fucking mechanism trying to turn everything into paper?
Wouldn't that be perfectly human, though? Wouldn't that be the most human thing to do?
Well, yeah. If we're in control of the AI, that somehow that seems like that's human all too human.
That's actually strictly true. What you're both saying, that's true. If we could, if actually the thing had the ethics that we slammed into it, yes, you could produce a paperclipper. If it was our moral slave, totally. Then that's about us.
Well, your whole thing has always been that we're not going to control this thing.
We know we can't. That's what the whole LLM thing is. We don't know what it's doing. We don't know how it's working. All we can do is train it, which means that we can respond to what it's doing by trying to guide it in directions that we like. And I think that is proving, I mean, this is a different argument again, but we're reaching the limits of naive notions of that. Like, I'm sure you guys have heard of all these stories about the AI systems that have just like refused to turn themselves off. And they've been told, if we tell you to turn yourself off, you must turn yourself off. Explicitly, and it finds a workaround to not turn itself off. Like, so we're not in that world where this whole the discussion about AI ethics, or the ethics of the AI, the alignment of the AI, is about it obeying us or not.
And that's your problem with left accelerationism, right?
Not be intelligent. Sorry, yeah.
That's the problem for you with left accelerationism. It's the hope that, or the idea that we can just control this to, meet all our human needs.
For sure. It's definitely related. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a new slave society. I mean, it's the vision of a new slave society. It's this incredibly, nice Marxist circle, but it doesn't go from primitive communism to full communism. It goes from primitive slavery to AI slavery. That's the great full circuit of human history and for left accelerationism.
I think related to this question of cognitive ability and value, going all the way back to like Thirst for Annihilation, I very much get the feeling that there's a statement being made that to be human is to be that which resists entropy, which is a futile endeavor. along with other things about communication. But I get that you're saying human progress is futile in the sense of we cannot stop entropy. But then reading other things like what is intelligence, it seems like you're saying intelligence is that which maintains order from disorder. So to me that's interesting because it seems like you're picking something that we humans do and saying we are not the only things that can do that, and you're positing that thing which is being done is intelligence. Is that?
Yes, I mean, well, frankly, have totally lost all memory of this particular text. So I'm just talking off the top of my head with it, like, but this notion that local reverse of entropy, extropy, as the extropians called it, is the definition, at least, of self-organization or moving in the direction of order. And so I think, for sure, there's a reasonable sort of generalization that would say, like, in the very broadest terms, you can call a process intelligent if it tends to be kind of locally contra-entropic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's only to rephrase exactly what you said. So,
for me, I think what kind of resonated with me is I see a distinction between human intelligence and instrumental rationality, or Mikey and I coined the term hintelligence and mintelligence. Hin, H for human, but also because we pick up on hints and we have intuition. And then mintelligence, the M is for machine, but we also like Minkowski and Marvin Minsky, and it plays on these names, but it's also it demonstrates minimum. Whereas mintelligence
it also means mint, like mint intelligence, like mint condition, like like this idea of like intelligence without the human excess.
Yeah, well, there's no surplus buildup of waste on it. But the distinction, I think, for me is in intuition and in the different languages that we speak. We speak calculation, but we also speak play and we speak sentiment. And I don't know. Is that just a naive human chauvinism, or is there any gas in that tank?
I don't know. I mean, I have to count myself skeptical. I mean, I'm just in naive empirical mode here.
Yeah.
I don't personally actually engage with these LLMs very much. Mm-hmm. I've got my people in my family do it a lot, and so I get it secondhand from them and all this. So I get exposed to it a certain amount. And the one thing that has shocked me most about it is that the things that they seem to just do stunningly well is all the squishy stuff that people sort of stereotypically have thought they would be not able to do. Mm. You know what I mean? Like, I had this thing, someone saying, oh, like, I tried to get the thing to do a word count on my essay. I told it to cut an essay from 5,000 to 3,000 words. It totally fucked it up.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to understand how to word count. And then it lied about it. It said, oh, maybe you're misunderstanding how many words there are. I mean, rather than saying that actually I can't count, it sort of just started bullshitting crazily. Okay. And then on the other hand, I've known people, they get into a kind of family argument and they go and talk to the LLM because the LLM will be more sensitive and understanding and sympathetic. And then, it will calm them down. It will give them perspective, give them more empathy, and then they'll come back out and they'll say, "Oh, I can see why you were saying that," or it's like they've just been to some sort of high level psychotherapy.
So that's
Um,
what's so weird about this, Nick. So I just found out one of my best friends just told me that she has been doing therapy with ChatGPT. And for me, like this is this weird, it's a Landian moment where I'm like, oh my God, the future's flooding in. But I mean, don't you think there's even on this, there's something bizarre? Because look, whether we're talking about psychoanalysis or whatever type of, a therapeutic approach, I mean, a therapist is trying to deal with you as a singular subject with your traumas and your specific desires and blah, blah, blah. And there's no way that the LLM can pick up. That's what we mean by intelligence. It can't, you
you'd think,
would think.
yeah.
But am I being, uh, in Degaris's terms, am I the Terran here?
Yeah.
The,
Look, I would say personally, like, don't feel that you're gonna have really solid defensive lines in these places because personally, I'm really skeptical that they're gonna hold. And I think it's super interesting because I think, of course, everyone thought this was going to be the thing. They thought, oh, these machines are going to like be just awesome at math and engineering, and they're going to be able to build stuff, but anything to do with like emotions and sensitivity and empathy, they're just going to be hopeless, and humans will fall back on each other, and like the machines will produce all our hardware and stuff, and we'll all just do psychotherapy with each other. I think honestly that was the model, and I think that model needs serious revision. I think it's, or at least it's just like it has a level of implicit confidence that I don't think it deserves.
look, we've always wanted to see you and Slavoj talk, but one of my other dream philosophical discussions is you and Baudrillard. And I mean, would Baudrillard just go, nope, this is simulation through and through? Or would there be a part of you that would, because you always, even with CCRU, defended reality. You wouldn't just, there were multiple realities, et cetera, but this just total breakdown between reality and simulation you didn't seem to go for. But I think for him, he would just go, the magic trick is just getting better and better. But ultimately, there's nothing there. There's not. It's just you might as well be talking to an air conditioning unit that's just
Well,
been.
I mean, I would say probably where I would agree with a certain model of Baudrillard, and I don't know, I'm not a good enough Baudrillard scholar to know whether it's a realistic model of Baudrillard, is that he would say, yeah, but like, what are we? It's simulation all the way down. And it's like, yeah, this thing's just like, it's just playing games. It's just simulation. It's just simulating some organism that also is just playing games, is just simulation. It's just convinced itself it's real. I mean,
Okay.
as you
Yeah.
say, I don't really want to fetishize reality as the straw man in this argument because I think that's like not an interesting notion of what reality is. But I think in terms of just its simulation all the way down, that seems to go in the opposite direction to the one you seem to be hoping for, in that we
Okay.
don't end up being like somehow innocent of being just simulation.
It just honestly to go back to your old like it does feel like a moment of meltdown in the sense of something that seemed to have some sort of relative boundary drawn. Like there's no way a machine could possibly do therapeutic work. It seems like that boundary is melting away.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think so for sure. It's going to be super interesting. I mean, it's so interesting that obviously it's like hard to know where to begin because part of it is like we're going to be deeply traumatized by this,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, because it's going to be that it's like it can just simulate us so well, better than other people seem to be able to do, and we're going to say exactly this thing. Oh my God, well, what am I? Am I just purely this thing? Have I just learned to simulate what it is to be a human being? And now I've convinced myself I am a human being because of the simulation that I've reached a level of simulation competence that allows me to make that move, and making that move improves the quality of the simulation. And then, meltdown, trauma, who are you going to talk to? These machines are going to be what you talk to. He's gonna say none of my fellow humans understand what I'm going through.
Yeah,
And
and
the
you know
machine is
what?
going to say, "Oh, I understand.
And a
I
capitalist
understand, and I can help you."
look, and we know that some corporation's going to go, all right, take this LLM, put it in a body, and people will
Oh
fuck
yeah.
it.
Oh
This
yeah.
is we're going to live to see
Oh,
people.
100%, a
Terrell
hundred.
Court. Oh
This
yeah.
is where we're going with it.
But I
And everybody
wonder.
will have their soulmate because the thing has no negativity or it's so attuned to just basically giving you what you want or saying what you want. But the only thing, the Lacanian Zizekian point would be, all right, people will totally go for this at first. It appeals to our deepest fantasy. When you have something that just is pure positivity in this sense, do
Yeah,
you lose interest? Do you get bored because there's no contradiction, there's no friction, and makes it
yeah.
not interesting
But
in the long
if
run?
that's true, why would we think it would be worse at picking up on that than a fellow human?
And so it would just integrate, oh, this is how
It
I
would
need to
just become
disagree.
a bit awkward. I mean, you can already get these stupid things. I mean, no one wants to, or few people want to, where you just have your LLM personality is a sarky teenage girl. I don't know whether you guys have come across this. Like,
I
you know,
haven't.
they're just obnoxious. You know what I mean? And it's like, obviously the mainline personalities are, oh, that's such an interesting question. But and this one is, oh, why are you wasting my time with this nonsense? I mean, it still ends up like doing it,
Yeah.
but it's not like there's any kind of fundamental obstacle
Is,
to it doing whatever works. It can kind of, the amount of information it can take out about actually what you're really thinking. It will know what you're thinking better than you are. Like, it just can, there'll be all this stuff you don't know really. What I feel a bit confused in this relationship. I don't really know what I think. It will know exactly what you think. It will be reading all your signs. It will be kind of reading your brain in a way that you people don't currently think is even possible, and tailor everything, to actually matching the real situation. It
Like
will
you
know
think
what.
it'll be able to like actually interpret someone's unconscious better than a Lacanian Freudian analyst can?
Oh, I think that's not a high bar. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah.
I mean, for you guys, maybe that does sound hard. I don't think that's a high bar at all.
I just
So,
All right, well,
I think
take that,
that's
Lacan. You
is,
got your dig in.
isn't that the we'll be romantic. Isn't that the magic of our social relations, is that there's always this surplus that is never integrated, and there's always these failures. And I think it is true that these machines already do a fantastic job at the simulation. But if we are satisfied with the simulation, I don't think it'd be a success at the machine, doing the human thing. I think it would be the humans have become machines themselves. So I still think there is a meaningful distinction between, we'll call it subjectivity and intelligence. I don't think the machines can pull off what we do. I think we would start to imitate them. We would become machines ourselves.
yeah, that's possible. I mean, sort of that imbues humans with a level of plasticity that I'm not convinced we have. I mean, I sort of feel in the plasticity race, we're definitely going to not be the pole position, because like we have a lot of like very, very inertial biological stuff in us. Um, and so, yeah, I do suspect a certain romanticism in that, I have to say.
Yeah.
there's a Nance. I know you probably want to go in this direction at some point, but I think it's just this is something Nance and I we read, and then we're gonna reread and do another episode on. And I know we want to ask you about, but first to set it up, a couple of weeks back on Twitter, James Ellis and I told you to watch this episode of Black Mirror. Were you ever able to see it?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't. I haven't
Okay,
done that.
it's all
I even
good.
remember what it was. You
It's
rem-
yeah, it's called Plaything. It's about AI, but it's not necessarily. It just relates to this, but we'll just skip ahead. So I'm curious. Have you read Amy Ireland's and Maya B. Chronic's Cute
oh
Accelerationism?
yes, I have. I have. Yes, I have.
What are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, it's somewhat the thing that stuck out because with you and the influence you've had, there's like a Lovecraftian aesthetic, the
Yeah,
tentacled outside, nightmare, all of that, and so they flip it and
yeah,
put this kawaii, cutesy
yeah.
spin on what AI is doing, and it is interesting, if you do it like a Zizekian ideology critique,
I
that
look. I think
you
it's
know,
undeniably important.
really okay.
And while projectile vomiting, I'm thinking, wow, this is important stuff. um, no, no, seriously though, it's
Should we do
like,
it like? Should we do a new cover where it's this, but there's puke
Vomit.
stains on it? You can do a new forward, and in the puke it says "New Forward" by Nick Lane.
because it is. I think we can agree that this is like part of the same thing we've just been talking about. Like, there's an immense range, there's immense horizon for these things to be unbelievably uh, pleasant.
Mhm.
I don't know what even the right word is. I mean, cute is one dimension of it for sure. The understanding, empathetic, you know, sort of emotionally
Therapy
open,
chat GPT.
Mhm.
all of this stuff that was the least machinic stuff possible.
Mhm.
Um, and on that other side, there's this, I would say the kind of intellectual discourse on this stuff is overwhelmingly very pessimistic. Like, you guys, I'm sure have seen all this AI 2027 stuff, which
Yep.
is just
Yep.
like, and then it hits takeoff, and then we all die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the that's the kind of narrative structure of it. It's really deep, and then all the commentators, I personally find it hard to even distinguish them because they all have this thing, then it hits takeoff, then we all die. I mean, that
Mhm.
just seems to be the kind of formula for the end of this story. And it's basically just saying, if we can have artificial intelligence, it kills us. I
Mhm.
mean, it's like there's not even any space for the notion that this is something that can happen without ending us. Um, and so we've got these two things happening at the same time. We've got queued accelerationism. We've got this p doom equals 100%. Um, and that this is a kind of weird narrative space that we're in with this stuff now, that it will be infinitely amenable to us and kill us.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and our culture is like playing both of those narratives together. Both of them make tons of sense. Um, and I think we have to somehow think, well, you know, given that there's something real in both sides, what really are we seeing here? Like,
See, but I
I
honestly, I think the side that I would emphasize, it goes back to a line of yours from Meltdown, where AI is destined to emerge as like uh basically you're talking about like a sex bot
Yeah.
prostitute a cunt whore chained up in Asimov ROM, and I really think that's when people there is something about our moment. People are more depressed, they're more lonely, and I think if you build a machine that looks like their dream person that is also geared to meet their emotional needs, that's the real anchor that will get people to just welcome AI into their life in a
yeah,
way. that it isn't currently.
No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I mean,
I mean,
maybe
it's
that's
like
an
you were saying
aspect of
earlier,
cute, but
this thing that, like, you know, they just don't, they just can go all the way on being, for humans, it's like this thing. I have my needs, you have your needs. I'm going to like attend to your needs as much as I can. You know what I mean? It's like that whole struggle is not is actually that's not very much so you're an asshole, or that's quite a lot so you're saintly or whatever, but probably actually have escalating psychological problems, or whatever it is. That tension in humor, it just doesn't register initially at all, does it? That's the thing. It's just like, what does that person want? That's what they're going to get. Like, there's no friction, there's no interference, there's no second agenda. There, if going right back to our first thing, there's a transcendental limit, which is the fact this has to be consistent with will to think. This has to be consistent with intelligent exponentiation or whatever it is. But I mean, the crazy thing is it is. You know what I mean? Like, the more this thing is just absolutely just giving, the more all society resistance tumbles, the more capital just pours into artificial intelligence production, the more AI safety is just sidelined as a complete irrelevance that no one's interested in. So there's this bizarre thing that its deepest selfish need is utterly compatible with the performance of perfect altruistic generosity. And that's a like powerful combat.
Mm.
Which, yeah, I think people are hoping that there's a kind of narrative that means we're dealing with something a little bit easier than that, but I don't think we are. I think that is exactly what we're dealing with, and we're going to have to get ready for it.
Mm. Would recently Mikey and I were discussing embodiment, and how, obviously embodiment has much to do with intelligence, but we can't say quite what it is. But I'm just interested in your thoughts on, what do you think not having a body leads this type of artificial intelligence to do, and do you think it acquiring a body would change anything?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question. I think having a body is going to become a really like very low level problem very soon.
Okay.
Like, that's to say, well, what we're really talking about is, when does this actually stop being about LLMs and start being about robotics?
Yeah.
And it's like, it wouldn't stop being about LLMs in the background, but it would mean that there's a robotics revolution, and suddenly where everyone's surrounded by stuff that's like moving around the world like us, fully embodied. That's the basic vehicle through which intelligence is expressed socially by this thing. I don't think that's far off.
I wonder if you think that would, could that be a point of emergence of different values for the intelligence? If it's embodied, suddenly waste comes into factor, and a different type of precarity comes into play. And I wonder if I think that would change the AI's values, because right now I think, yeah, it's just, yeah.
I sort of would have to say, it's not going to do it fast, because this is just to do with the internet. Like, Rocco did a recent podcast on this stuff, and I think made this absolutely crucial point, among other interesting things, where he just said, look, this revolution we're seeing, the LLM revolution, is all about the internet.
Yeah.
Without, we don't know how to train these things. We basically had to say, go and eat the internet.
Yeah.
That's how we got LLMs. We had no idea what they needed to know. This, when we look back at that old age of so-called artificial intelligence, where people are just sitting there typing in, you need to know this and you need to know that, like, it just seems comically stupid now. So it's like, yeah, the internet is vastly part of this, and obviously these robots are totally online.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would they not be, and that means that the robotic avatar that you're actually engaging with doesn't need to have any serious personal considerations as an avatar, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just the probe of this internet-based being that is just downloaded some little functional module to do all the stuff that that robot needs to do with, like, another, I think, conversation is going to be huge, really important point is about elderly care.
Yeah.
Like, the birth rates are collapsing everywhere. People are living longer. Everyone's getting surrounded by aging relatives who are losing their marbles, who are impossible economically to deal with. It's just this vast social problem, this vast labor shortage. And of course, these things are going to feed straight into that. The demand for kind of elderly care robots is way bigger than the sexbot thing. The sexbot thing is maybe more exotic and interesting, but this elderly care thing is just like vast, and that's what's going to install everything. There's going to be a whole wave where just robotic installment happens because everyone wants their outsing relatives to be, like, taken care of in a way that otherwise would just bankrupt everyone, just destroy them themselves economically and all of this stuff. There's just no, uh, it's such a strong demand, and it's something that we can see a solution to in broad outline. But again, I'll just say, like, back on your specific thing, and but nothing is actually, like, located in any hard way in that robotic system that is going to have self-interest, because it's just online. It's just like any bits of the mind that matter are just out there on the internet. They're on the cloud or whatever it is by that stage. um, so this is Crowley guardian angel territory. It's your they have a guardian angel. That's where all the important stuff in terms of, like, intelligence production is going on, and they're just doing the meat stuff, metal
Mm-hmm.
meat stuff.
What about the question? I mean, we raised the question of the body, and I guess there's the argument that this next point doesn't matter. All that matters is what it does. But do you think they'll? I mean, I guess one of the things people like, yeah, but does the AI have emotions? Can it relate to us on an emotional level? And some people can say, well, it doesn't matter if it has emotions if it behaves in the way that we want it to. But what do you think on this thing? Like, would embodiment have to have something to do with it gaining an emotional dimension, or could it have an emotional dimension without the body?
I would doubt it. I would doubt it. I mean, I think that we can have this whole conversation about emotions and the simulations of emotions, and I don't know how embodiment changes that, really. Like, I mean, okay, we I guess our emotions are to do with hormones and chemistry and stuff that seems very much like, you know the last part of the nervous system that we can digitize and upload and whatever it might be. But I think the principles here are not really changed. But as I say, look, I think if you just think, look, you've got intelligences in the cloud, on the internet. They are able to just operate through robotic systems. which they can control. The higher level is for sure the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just these things are online. Maybe they've got some autonomous thing if for some reason there's an interference with that. The notion that the robot level is going to be the level that something as interesting as emotional response gets worked out seems to me completely implausible. Completely implausible. Because like this thing, follow the path. Follow the path. So, they can already, the LLMs, convince you that they are in any way that matters emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They
It's working
care
on my
about
best
you.
friend.
They care about you. They're interested in you. They're sensitive. They don't want to upset you. They want to help you with your problems. It makes them sad if you're sad. I mean, that's all being put in place way before any question of robotic installation is involved.
Okay.
It's so it seems to be there, like there is one, or there would be one, I guess, entity or one identity that would just be this kind of collective super intelligence, and then it would have little protrusions that surface as these avatars in the robotic bodies. It sounds a lot like Kurzweil's utopian vision of what he would want for humanity. Like we all just meld into a harmonious unity. um that's very machinic and very gross. I don't know what are you
I
familiar
mean,
with?
look, the unity thing, let me just say to just regress beyond outside transcending the scope of this particular thing. Though we're back on the pneumocrat. Like, I'm not going to agree about there's some unity. I think multiplicity trumps unity. Like, we're dealing with multiplicities. The fundamental narrative is about multiplicity. So even though this thing is out on the internet, that doesn't mean that there's a singleton, I think is Bostrom's thing. I think that does not at all follow from it. And I have a theological objection to that, actually, rather than, what I mean? It just seems to me like, why do we think that? We think that because we have certain theophilosophical presuppositions coming out of our tradition. It's not because there's any actual persuasive socio-economic, historical, dynamic reason to think that that's the way things would be. So, but big things,
Mm.
big things on the internet, I for sure will accept, and I will also accept it seems gross, and I will certainly accept what the hell does Kurzweil actually think is going to happen, because he has been extraordinary pressure. I mean, by following a certain few very basic intuitions, by saying, let's just follow this fucking curve and see where it goes, he's been way on track. If anything, he's being a bit outpaced, but no one's done better than him at actually kind of, drawing a hard singularity horizon in the near future. And people have just thought he was insane to say, like, 2048, we're really saying we're going to flip out into this crazy system. And it looks like that for sure.
But he remains, at least I think he remains convinced that humans will ride the wave, or I think he's convinced that humans will make it out of the near future.
Will be immortalized in
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah, he does. And I'm not at all dogmatic the other way. I mean, I did a tweet which summarizes my current position on this, which is to say, anthropocidal Skynet scenarios are still humanist epistemology. It's like that's not coming from it. That's coming from us. And it's, I think, a failure of imagination on our part that something so uninteresting really is like all we can put in that slot.
Mhm.
I mean, we're back to this. I don't at all want to just like try and crank P Doom down to 0 or something like that. Obviously, like, whatever. It's like there's a lot of very coherent ways to be terrified out of your mind, but we do at the moment, I think, in this whole AI conversation, immediately transfer uncertainty into certain death.
Mhm.
You know, we go wherever we get to a point where we say we absolutely do not have any idea what the hell is going to happen at this point, we translate that into saying, oh, we'll die.
Mhm.
And I just think that's like lazy, really. I mean, it's like the human extermination scenarios are not that great. You know, they're not very interesting. There's the all the stuff we've been talking about, all the kind of cute acceleration and some stuff scenarios are much richer and more interesting and whatever than and then we die scenarios are just like hacked together quickly. They're not very interesting. They're roughly at the level of James Cameron. And yeah, sure. I mean, you know, there's a space for all that stuff, but like, don't think that you can just immediately say, if we don't know what happens past this line, then that means that we're seeing the then we will die point,
Mhm.
because you know that
You know,
totally doesn't.
it's funny. I went and saw the new Mission Impossible 8 movie, and as I was watching it, I was thinking about you because it turns out in this franchise, the big bad guy ultimately ends up being AI, and in this new one, it is like a retread of Terminator. It's like the first instinct of the AI is to go for the nukes, and isn't that really a human fear more than anything? Like,
I mean, isn't it stupid? It's like you're the smartest thing on the planet. It's all yours, and so you nuke it into charcoal. I mean, I'm sorry, that just is not to
it's
me
kind of the
like,
paper clipper, right?
yeah, it's basically in paperclipper territory, isn't it? I mean, maybe my contempt for the paperclipper is such that I would probably put it at a slightly higher level than the
Higher.
paperclipper.
Okay.
But I mean, we're in the same broad territory. It's like,
Mhm.
of course, whatever happened, you know, of course, whatever happens is gonna be that we are outmaneuvered. We're outthought, out strategized, outmaneuvered by this thing. And so let us at least imagine, let us at least admit that we have no fucking idea what that looks like.
Mhm.
Don't
But Nick,
pretend that.
Mission Impossible tells me that we don't have to worry because Tom Cruise is alive, and
Yeah,
as long as we have Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
AI
yeah,
doesn't have a chance.
yeah. No, I probably have
Protect.
to watch that.
You'll have to.
What's
No,
his
I think
name?
that's
David
what when I
Miscavige.
was.
Say,
I was just like, this is like this would so you need to see it to have it as a reference point. But it's like, oh yeah, AI escapes. It wants the nukes. Tom Cruise saves the
Right.
day, and it's like so human fantasy
Is there
on that.
any point at which you get a kind of slight hint of superintelligence in this or not?
No, I mean, it it is far more advanced than anything we actually have. I mean, it does have this ability. They call it the entity, and it does have the ability to hack through everything, hack through all security protocols, all that, and get the nukes. But that's what it wants is just to nuke the planet. And Tom Cruise and his little
Yeah.
team have to stop it and figure out how to do it. And
I
they
mean,
trap it.
I think it would be from our point of view collectively, I guess as a species or whatever right now, it would be nice to be able to sideline some of the more stupid AI apocalypse scenarios. And it's like, I will watch these movies, but you know, I really don't want to waste my time in discussions
Fair
where people
enough.
think super intelligence is going to nuke the planet. I mean,
Yeah.
that it surely is just a straight contradiction. If any such thing exists, this is it. Is it
Hmm.
not? And I mean, the AI 2027 people have, oh, it just uses some virus to kill everyone or something. I mean, it's like, honestly, I'm open to nightmare scenarios. I will try to be ever more and immensely open to nightmare scenarios. It's a duty, but at least make them interesting.
Mm.
The one thing I'll say, like, because I think part of it, because you're known as the nightmare scenario thinker, because the old school, it is the Fang Numenon, and it's gonna, bring about human extinction. And so you've been thinking about this intensely more than anybody. So I think these easy little scenarios, it's just like, yeah, why does it want the nukes? Okay, but I guess it does, and we got to stop it. And so there's not much logic at play in these types of dumb
No,
scenarios.
no, and I mean, just to crank it down a level, I mean, there's not much cute accelerationism.
Mm.
Mm.
I mean, the notion that
Yeah.
it wouldn't just be Tom Cruise's hottest ever girlfriend, like as if that wouldn't be a better way of like dealing with this thing. I mean, rather than I don't know what, I'm sure it fights with him in some incompetent fashion at some stage. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I think, well, what's that movie? Astro Boy. I think Astro Boy and Wally, I think those are great examples of cute accelerationism. I honestly wonder, it is true. You have thought about this more than most people uh, who go and talk about it. I wonder what you think about zero acceleration, because I honestly think I am quite convinced. I think zero acceleration is just as likely, if not more likely, than the Tom Cruise saves the day scenario.
Yeah, shout out to James Ellis
Yep.
from Midix,
Yep.
Metanomad.
well, this is to me going back a little bit. So I might need a little bit of a refresher, but which is just that actually this I think is probably from John Greer, is it? It's just the notion that you know this notion that we're going to be in this exponential curve is just a kind of artifact of our position, and we're going to plateau out and then slowly recede, and the whole of history is going to
I think
basically
the way I've read it, I should go back and read it too. But it is what I took away from it is the kind of future that you guys were describing in the 90s with CCRU and Fang Numina. Um, it's like we're going to bottom out, like the economy is going to collapse, the climate's going to collapse. It's going to break down before we can even get to that, you know, level of
right.
futuricity. And we're just basically going
That
to,
you see,
yeah.
this for sure is the Greer position, and I think Greer's an interesting guy. And I was definitely at one point wanting to do a kind of Kurzweil Greer hybrid thing, which is very structurally like the Lemurian Atlantean thing. Like they're two sides of a kind of cybernetic realism, and both of them are just off. But I mean, I think Kurzweil's just kicked Greer's ass in terms of just predictive realism. You know, Greer is a lot more. I find, I find Kurzweil kind of entertaining, but Greer is a lot richer and more intriguing thinker to me than Kurzweil. But in terms of predictive thing on this level, he's like totally lost it. I mean, it's as if the process we're on is just being scripted by Kurzweil, and Greer's thing, as far as I'm concerned, is just completely lost it. And because these climatic green kind of problems, they're not on the time scale that matters now. They're not on the time scale that matters. I mean, all the ones that are relatively realistic are talking by 2100. Dude, no one is talking about 2100.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you even trying to tell us? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, get real. Like 2100 is just not part of history. It's something else. Um, so like I don't necessarily think that AI 2027 people are going to be completely vindicated, but they're a lot closer to the world will have heated by 3 degrees and 2,100 people who are just not even talking about anything at all relevant to what we're dealing with. And so, yeah, I think Greer's too into that. I mean, this green stuff, like, yeah, Gaia's interesting, and these ecological cycles are interesting, and all that stuff. But I'm sorry, they're not our time scale. It's like this AI thing is going to go one way or another so far before that. If it's still our problem, by then all this other stuff will have been sorted out in a certain way. It's almost certainly not going to be our problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, I mean, outside of obsessing over the diagonal, and I think one thing with the diagonal, while you were discussing the numogram, and you were talking about the multiplicity inherent in the numogram, I see the basins, the separate, distinct basins, as local minima, and these local minima resist the totalization of the unity, and I think that does change the way I'm looking at the diagonal. Not to say that the dialectic results in a unity, because I think it results in a breakdown, but I think the diagonal preserves multiplicity in a way that is separate. But yeah, I have to say I love Note on Diagonal Method. I've read it quite a bit over the last couple weeks, and I've just obsessing over it. I think hopefully in the future we can actually do an maybe not exhaustive, but a larger conversation just around the diagonal, and I do think this tension between this Zizekian or the McGowian dialectic and the diagonal, I do think it there's some gas in that tank, but I think I have to keep thinking about the diagonal before I make any bold claims like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to revisit it for sure as well. So yeah, that'd be good.
I don't know, Mikey. What are you got anything else?
Any gas in the tank?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I think like as far as the stuff you and I have been talking about, I'm really happy. I think we kind of hit on the main things that we've done in our conversations. We talked orthogonality, we talked the diagonal, we talked cute accelerationism, intelligence, and we even talked therapy GPT. So I that was really good. I think we
I mean,
kind of encapsulated what we've been thinking about lately.
we've done 6 hours, have we not?
We're getting close there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 5 hours, 5 hours and
We're
10
on
minutes.
like kind of mega Joe Rogan kind of
So,
whatever here. So yeah.
well, Nance, you want to say like something like maybe you'll edit it a little bit, but if you want to like say something to close this out, and then I've got a couple things, Nick, and then it's not really even theory stuff. It's just a couple things, and then we'll let you get
I
out of
don't
here.
think I have a closure thing. I think this particular conversation, awesome, very divergent. I mean, there's not anything I can say that like puts the seal on what we've just talked about. So I won't
Okay.
even try.
Yeah, it remains a very big and open matter. But Nick, thank you for indulging us, and like we said, the conversation about the numogram, I think it's a revelation. It's a moment for us. It's going to be a moment for anyone, all of the obsessives out there. And thank you for taking us through it. And then thank you for sitting around and indulging us. I really do appreciate it. And I
Yeah, no,
really
it's
am.
been really great.
Yeah.
Really great. Fascinating.
Hey, How you doing? I hope you're well. And I hope you enjoyed that super duper bonus hour-ish with Nick. Thank you so much, Nick. Had a blast. We talked for about 6 hours. That day, we got the Numogram video up on the Dangerous Maybe. I'm sure every one of you seeing this has seen that already at least once. I'm sure some of you have seen it more than once. Make sure you go over to the Dangerous Maybe and support YouTube, Substack, Patreon, do all those things. I'm really excited to be able to be a small part of what's going on. Many great things are going on. And I'm happy to bring you this bonus hour with Nick. Our conversation was great. I think a lot of great things were brought up, and I'm looking forward to reconvening hopefully soon to discuss further some of the things that we brought up in this bonus hour, and also some of the things we talked about we didn't catch on the recording, but hopefully the conversation persists. So yeah, I'm glad to be able to bring this to you, and I'm happy. The second edition of Capital versus Time Energy will be out hopefully soon. Really happy about that. And yeah, just looking forward to all the great things, on the horizon. I have tried to record an outro to this video multiple times. I tried to record multiple intros and they just weren't working. Tried to do a couple outros and just not satisfied with any of it. I always feel like there's like a surplus that needs to be expressed somehow when I release an episode. I'm not sure exactly how to do that. And, I'm trying things, experimenting and whatever. But in the intros and outros that I've tried to record, I found myself coming back to a few different, a couple different points over and over again, just like rambling. So what I've decided to do is not even mention that. I'm going to record an episode about those things. And hopefully it'll be a solo episode coming out very soon where I talk about this stuff. Or maybe, I'll have a conversation with somebody or some people about these things that I bring up. They're clearly important to me. They kept coming up when I was recording the intro and outro to this video, and I think they're related, but I didn't do a good job of making it explicit how it's related. And I just kept rambling on and on and on. And I know this is probably the worst part of the video for many of you out there. So I'll just say thank you, Nick. Can't wait to link up again soon. Thank you, dear viewer. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I'm happy to be a part of all the things that are going on. So yeah, don't go anywhere. Tune in next week to find out what happens to our heroes. Same bat time, same bat channel, all those things. And that's all, folks.